Enjoy the Netflix movie and want to see where it all started? The Death Note 1 volume edition is our item of the day.
Hello everyone, this is Kevin the Entrepreneur, and it has been a big week. Uber's got a new CEO, and the news keeps pouring in, but you know what? I kind of missed something. When I wanted to start this channel, I started it wanting to give people advice on what to make money on. And we just got through Labor Day weekend, and I didn't do a video about driving for Labor Day. So maybe I should, do a video where I just talk about what my favorite holidays to drive for are, what I think are the most profitable or the most fun, or a little bit of both. But it's been a while since I've done one of these videos. Maybe I should get some help. Hello?
Hey Kevin, it's Mark from the Uber Hints channel. I was just thinking about driving over the holidays, and I thought I'd give you a call and see what you thought about it.
Hey, me too. I was just thinking about that. It's oddly coincidental. It's as if you knew.
Well, in a past life, I used to be a British spy.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yeah, so there's one of my favorite holidays that I actually like to drive for, and I know it's not popular for people to want to drive, but it's actually the 4th of July. And, a lot of people don't like driving for the 4th of July because, obviously they have barbecues and family events or sometimes friends events to get to do. But I have to admit, there's a couple things that really attract me to the 4th of July, one of which is, of course, very high surge. It's surging almost all night, and the surges are really high. But the other fun thing about it is that you get to see a lot of fireworks when you're driving on the 4th of July. Like, they are everywhere, and you hear stories about people who pay a lot of money to go to these events to see these fireworks, and you get to see them all night when you drive for Uber and Lyft on the 4th of July.
And the other great thing about the 4th of July is the events are typically staggered. And if you look in the newspaper, you can see all the different events and the different starts and ending times of parades and fireworks and community activities. So you can be in the right place at the right time if you plan accordingly.
Yes, you can be in the right place at the right time if you plan accordingly. I'm going to actually confess to all you viewers out there, I've never actually done that other than a general area where I know people hang. But yes, as the Uber Hints guy, you would definitely know that strategizing is a very good thing to do. And the thing about 4th of July is that, yes, they make the events, times, and locations very well known. You don't even need Uber's little heat map, as they call it, to nudge you in the directions of where these things are going to be.
And Uber does do a lot of the work for us. With the bigger programs, they will often have the staging sites and those areas where they can, we can anticipate and we can go and wait for the rides. So there's a lot to be said for days like Independence Day, 4th of July.
Yep, and I don't know about you, but every 4th of July, it has never failed. Passengers have always given me cookies.
I have never gotten cookies, but then again, I kind of have a striking resemblance to Benjamin Franklin, so maybe people are just trying to... I've gotten pennies. A penny saved is a penny earned, but hopefully that'll increase as the future goes on.
Yeah, hopefully.
Talking about the odd holidays, the unusual holidays that a lot of us don't expect and don't think about, Halloween is another big one for me. Halloween has really changed in the past 5 to 10 years. Halloween has shifted from being a children's holiday to really becoming an adult holiday. And I've noticed that a lot more people are dressed up in their outrageous costumes and they're going to bars. And you know as well as I do that when people go to bars, they need rides because they're drinking and they don't want to get the tickets. And also, I'm finding when people are in those outrageous costumes, it makes it difficult for them to drive. So being a rideshare driver on Halloween is really a great opportunity.
I have actually driven Halloween the last few years. It's probably a number 3 on my list of the holidays that I like to drive for most. And you're absolutely right. Not only has that holiday become an adult holiday, but you're right. Those silly costumes do make it difficult to drive, so they want to ride home. Now, I am going to say it's a little easier to Uber on Halloween than Lyft, because since people are in costumes, the profile picture is not as useful as it would normally be.
Well, I'm assuming that we're not in costume, but you're of course talking about the profile pictures of the riders.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So, and what else about Halloween? Yeah, I have made a lot of money on Halloween, and it can go all night. So if you are a night owl, Halloween's a really good thing to do.
Not only that, but there are places that do have the trick-or-treating for shots, like college campuses. And oftentimes that's a great place to pick up riders too, because they're entering the night in a state where they really shouldn't be driving.
Right. Now, of course, the one thing about Halloween we do need to, of course, it shouldn't need to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway. There are still kids and families who like to celebrate Halloween, so if you're going to be driving before 9 p.m., please, folks, keep an eye on the road and watch out for kids.
Absolutely. So we've covered 4th of July, Halloween. What else have you got? What's another one of your favorite holidays to drive?
Well, I don't know if it's considered a holiday, but New Year's morning / New Year's Eve night is definitely, for me, been the holy grail of ride sharing for some pretty obvious reasons. Obviously, it's going to surge pretty much anywhere that you go. And the other thing is that people are kind of just in a really good mood. I'm going to say this because I have picked up a lot of people who drive on nights that they are obviously spending a lot of money, including Halloween, and they are usually especially not happy when they're paying for a high ride. But New Year's Eve, everyone's just in a good mood because it's a new year and it's a fresh start, and so everyone's just really nice on New Year's morning. Like, that's the only night, honestly, where when I pick someone up at 3 in the morning, I actually feel completely safe.
Yeah, New Year's Eve is a weird one for me because I am also self-employed in another industry that usually keeps me very busy on New Year's Eve. And this year in particular, I got done at about 11:45. So I was driving between a city and my home when midnight hit. But of course, when midnight hits, that's not when you're getting the rides anyway, because people all want to be somewhere. So I find that starting at about 10:30 until about quarter to midnight is when I get a lot of activity, because people are hustling and bustling to get to the place where they want to be. People have a preconceived idea of where they want to be at midnight, where they want to be celebrating that actual changeover of the year. And then for that half hour or so, things slow down. And I actually hit the road again about 12:30, quarter to 1, something like that. And man, did it pick up. I was seeing surge rates that were like 5 and 6 times. It was incredible.
Yeah, well, it should be noted, folks, that when I do New Year's Eve, I do about 8 to 11:15. And at that point, then I turn off the app because it's really slow and you're not really going to get calls anyway. But I turn it back on at around 12:15 to 12:20, and it's picked up tremendously at that point, and it stays strong pretty much the rest of the morning. Although it helps that I'm near like Disneyland. I've gotten some 8.9 surges on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, another thing, you talk about the morning, and what I find after any of these holidays is oftentimes the morning is very lucrative as well, because people have left their vehicles places. They go out and they don't anticipate, they don't think ahead. And so now when they get a little inebriated and they take the Uber or the Lyft home, the next morning they have to go back and find their vehicles. They have to get their cars. And I found the morning after these holidays is a pretty good time to drive as well, if you can drag yourself out of bed after driving all night on New Year's Eve.
Yes, and in fact, here's a little tip for those who do not want to stay up late at night. Never underestimate the day after, the morning after, not only because people leave their vehicles behind, but there is a lack of drivers on the road because a lot of drivers were up all night driving people getting surge, and they're going to sleep in the next morning. But because of that, that means that the morning after is in some ways just as lucrative, if not more, than the holiday itself. So never underestimate the morning after.
Absolutely. And it kind of leads into my second favorite, which I think would fall probably second on my list, and that's St. Patrick's Day. St. Patty's Day is kind of like New Year's Eve Junior. You have the same type of activities. People are getting out relatively early. I find the St. Patty's Day rush starts to come around 7:30, 8 o'clock, when people are starting to get out. And boy, that day goes on for a long, long time as well. I found that to be any of those holidays that people are no pun intended, but driven to drive or driven to drink, they need a lift. And St. Patty's Day is a classic day for people to go out and spend time at the bars.
It's interesting because I've never driven on St. Patrick's Day, and now that you say that, I kind of feel like I missed something very obvious, because for those of you who are watching the video, you may have noticed a little pattern with all 4 of these holidays that we've mentioned, and that's there is heavy drinking involved on all of them. So one of the keys to good holidays is if there's going to be a lot of drinking on the holiday and people are probably going to stay out late, it's usually a good indication that that's a holiday to go to. But I never thought about St. Patrick's Day. I feel a little foolish now for having not thought of it.
Yeah, it was very lucrative for me. And if I could go by extension, now, I think that we've covered the big holidays. And I think we should each kind of talk about our junior holidays, if you want to look at it that way. Here in Milwaukee, there's an 11-day festival, music festival called Summerfest. I believe it's the biggest music festival in the country. And people go there in droves. And it is a magnificent time to drive. It's like 11 days worth of holidays. Also, it falls over the Independence Day weekend. So you get that combination of what you had spoken about previously with 4th of July, and then you get all of these revelers that are going down and seeing their favorite music groups. And it's the same thing we're talking about. You know, it ends up being largely a beer fest, and the rides are fantastic. And I'm sure that you have your equivalent of those types of events.
Well, see, I'm in California and you're in Wisconsin, which, not to put Wisconsin down. Your house actually looks very lovely, by the way, but there is a little bit more going on in California typically. So there's a lot of mini holidays, but there's one place in particular that seems to have a mini holiday every week, and that's at the observatory. Now, that might sound like a museum to a lot of viewers, but it's actually not. It's a small music concert venue where people stand up, and that's also where every year they have the National Weed Celebration, if you will. And so these concerts, they are pretty much on a weekly basis, and in this little area, whenever the show ends, it's like a holiday, and people want to go home. They're high or they're drunk, and they want to get home, and sometimes they're coming from very far out of town to get there. So you can get a very lucrative ride. The only thing that's, of course, a little disappointing about a place like this is that you will get more rowdy people than usual, and you will have some kids who will try to squeeze more than 3 people into the car, and everyone who watches my channel know exactly how I feel about that, and I do not encourage anyone to let that happen.
And I think you brought up a great subject. That's the downside to all of these days. We talked about all the great things and the surges and the multipliers and all the reasons you should drive, but there are some downsides. And I think you have hit on one of those. And that's people that want to, I don't know if it's take advantage, but in their rowdy moods, they're going to try to pack the car. They're going to try to do things like when you're dropping someone off, just say, hey, there's an Uber car, there's a Lyft car, and hop right in without getting a request. And I don't know about you, but I have never had good success with someone sitting in my car, sending out a ping, and being the one that actually gets that request. I have found that whenever I've tried that as a rider and a driver, more often than not, the ping doesn't come to me, and we end up wasting 5 or 10 minutes. So oftentimes that situation you're describing is one of the drawbacks. We have to be kind of firm with the people that want to get in our vehicles.
And another thing that I want everyone to know, don't accept cash. If someone comes up at one of these events and say, hey, I need a ride, I'll give you cash, the answer is no. That is dangerous for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which there's no accountability to who this person is. Because people have actually asked me, do you ever feel unsafe driving for Uber? And the answer is yes. And in fact, there have been a couple close calls, but more than likely, people are not really going to attack you if they're smart, because all their information is on file and it would be pretty easy to find them if they tried anything serious.
Yeah, and that's not to go off subject, but it's one of the reasons that I'm a little concerned when they are having these test cities where they are accepting cash, because suddenly we were off the radar for people attacking us and robbing us because we don't have any money. When they started accepting cash, suddenly those targets are on our back once again. So I'm with you, don't accept cash. And while we're on the subject of bad things, what goes hand in hand with people going out and drinking? Well, some of that alcohol comes back up at a later time, and it could be in your vehicle.
Yes, that has happened to me a few times, and believe it or not, I think there are some pros and cons. The pros is that I get like a huge, nice, premium detail of the car the next morning at Uber's expense. The bad news, of course, is that your night of driving is more or less done, as well as the next couple days for that matter.
I have, believe it or not, never had somebody throw up in my vehicle yet.
Oh, well, I've had it happen 3 times, and it's not as big a deal as you would think, but it's also just as miserable as you'd expect.
Well, it's one of the reasons that I have the WeatherTech liners on my floors. Here in Wisconsin, of course, we have winters, and winters are terrible. They don't only drag in snow and ice and slush into your car, but there's that salt and sand from the roads, and it'll just destroy a carpet in the vehicle. So, for the same reason that you wouldn't want people getting sick, anticipate those things and prepare accordingly.
We do want to talk about one more thing before we end this video, though, because we're talking about holidays, and I'm sure that there is one holiday in the back of everyone's mind on what we think about it, and that is, of course, Christmas. Is Christmas worth driving for Uber? Now, I have unfortunately driven Christmas one year because I was having a particularly bad year, and we don't need to get into why, but I decided to drive Christmas because I wasn't feeling very festive. And Christmas is, surge-wise, not very profitable. Traffic-wise, there's not a lot of people who use it because it's not a big drinking holiday. And emotionally, you're not with your family. So even though there will be a few people who are really appreciative, and trust me, the few people you do get on Christmas, they will tip you very nicely for picking them up, because I think even the most cynical people appreciate that you're out there on Christmas giving them a ride. But overall, I think Christmas is a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. And, it's just one of those days where it's like, just do something with someone. You don't need to be driving on that day.
I agree with you. I think that we need a balanced life. Life isn't just about working. And it's not about profitability. Sometimes it's about being with our loved ones. So I'm with you in that one. Be with your friends and family. I would like to say, however, that the days surrounding Christmas and that Christmas, New Year's week can be a phenomenal week to get good airport drives, because they're some of the biggest travel days of the year. And we should really watch for those travel days and watch for those trends, because that's when we can make plans to be out there and be at the airports and make that good holiday money.
Yes, very good point. Don't underestimate the days surrounding Christmas Day. Those days are very busy and they're definitely worth your time. But when it comes time to Christmas itself, because I know people were going to ask, I would strongly just recommend people to just let that one go.
Kevin, I'm glad I picked up the phone, because this was a real worthwhile conversation. But, I've got a cat meowing behind me and he wants to get fed. So I'm going to have to bring this one to a close on you.
All right, that sounds good. And your call was appreciated, even though you probably did some British chip bug something somewhere that I am going to find. But in the meantime, all you watching, if you enjoyed Mark's videos, he is over at uberhints.com. You can subscribe to his videos, and you can subscribe to my channel below, and maybe we will do more collabs in the future. Who knows? But thank you for listening to us.